Hey, how you doing? I want to talk about the forgotten rage against the rich today. And before we begin, I want to show you an art piece I made recently. It's called Eat the Rich, and it's basically like a dinner table with faces of people, and there's this one banana in the middle that was the famous art painting that was sold. The quote on it says, "When the people shall have nothing more to eat, they'll eat the rich." So jumping into why we have forgotten our rage against the rich and how that is pissing me off, it's obviously the elephant in the room. We have a trillionaire before the end of world hunger or homelessness, by the way. I want to remind the internet the entire discourse that happened. I think it happened in 2021. The World Food Program director David Beasley actually stated on CNN that 2% of Elon Musk's wealth could solve the world hunger crisis. Elon Musk actually heard him for once, and he responded saying that he would donate $6.6 billion if the UN would provide like a proper plan and source and how that would go about to happen. The UN actually responded with a plan, emergency food aid, cash distribution, supply chain operations, and everything. Yeah, and then he didn't do anything and bought Twitter. So, well, there you go. I don't know why we've forgotten our rage against the rich, but it's been a long time coming. I tried to look it up. The only thing I could find was this one video that Billie Eilish calls out billionaires in the room with Mark Zuckerberg. There's like 20 articles stating that. Kind of pissed me off that that's the bare minimum we can do. It is a dog-eat-dog world out there. And that brings me to my first point. That is platform capitalism and the digital neo-feudal tech freaks. A lot of words that I did not know the meaning of before this video. Platform capitalism is basically like the top 10 brands that come to your mind when you think about any companies or brands. Those are like the platform operators. The way they work in the economy is by intermediating between users, workers, and businesses like Amazon, Uber, Google, etc. So I'm editing the video right now. I'm sorry, I'm on the train. I just realized I did a really poor job explaining this entire section, so I went back and researched some more about it. I found this one Medium article which talked about how platform capitalism, feudalism, and post-feudalism is an enjoyment that makes the difference. Please stay with me. So there was a Greek psychologist who was talking about how this position has been taken further by how capitalism has already evolved outside of itself into another system. In other words, platform capitalism taken as a type of technological feudalism, which implies that it is a regression in capitalism rather than a progression. That is quite simply capitalism without capitalism. Hence, platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Tinder, Minecraft, Roblox, and so on are fiefdoms within a feudal economy. There are nonetheless some important differences between neo-feudalism and traditional feudalism. The former does not require you to toil the land, since something much more radical is at stake. Single enjoyment, identities are affirmed. It is not toiling but the work of enjoyment that is at stake in platform capitalism. Basically what they're talking about is the concept of prosumption that George Ritzer termed. That is, that you can either be a consumer of the product that's being produced, or you can be a producer and the consumer at the same time. So you're a prosumer of the product. That's exactly what we are in the techno-feudalist economy. Something else they mentioned in that is that platform capitalism isolates the stubbornness of feudal fixations, finding something of a repetition outside of capitalist dialectics, which persists without mediation. Hence my claim is not that capitalism has progressed or mutated, but that quite simply feudal drive persists alongside capitalist temptations. That somehow we've found a way to make producer the consumer, and in that way feudalistic market has become much easier for it to circulate. The last thing they mentioned is probably the most interesting part. This one theory by Jaakko Lacan from 2018, and they said the surface of continuity is perhaps homologous to the whole, or the subject emerges as a missing place within a world thanks to the whole. It is possible in these circumstances to speak about the crisis of representation as modern anarchists and revolutionaries often like to do, but the crisis of representation only makes sense in a symbolic world. Hence, without the continuity of subject and world, crisis shifts from representation towards presentation. This is exactly what I'm talking about when I'm talking about how people are being performative on the internet and not representing themselves, even though we think that we are. And also, they mentioned that ChatGPT has been described as being more creative and innovative than humans probably could ever be, and that is because of of the distinction that ChatGPT is able to make between what is the subject and what is the world. And the subject is what it is answering to. However, we as humans have only lost the concept of that differentiation as we are the prosumers. Last paper I found was called Capitalist Discourse, Subjectivity and Lanakian Psychoanalysis, and there was this one diagram in that shows that the agent provides the content to others. So the agent is the product. Is how like the overall structure of the discourse and the relations between all the positions in this prosumer market is being conducted. Okay, so we're back. How did we get here? I want to bring it back to Marx's class struggles. Let me be really annoying for a second. So Marx identified 4 key dimensions of alienation. There's alienation from product of labor. We differentiate humans and their labor. Second, alienation from the process of labor. All that you do is like a mechanical, repetitive process. Third, alienation from fellow workers. There's only competition, there's not much cooperation that's going on. Fourth, alienation for species being, because we are inherently social and creative. So these forms of alienation can be seen in the modern context in forms of consumerism, corporate culture, platform capitalism, etc., etc. So first, there's capitalists and there's socialists. There's the left and there's the right. And we've divided ourselves into these 2 big categories, so black and white in our thinking that it's kind of starting to cause problems here. The more that this divide has been fostered, the more of our rage against said billionaires and the rich people has kind of died down, because we don't really care about that. All we care about is how I'm going to get a job in a company like Tesla or like SpaceX or whatever. I don't really care about whatever is going on in the world anyway. I can either pay my own bills because everything is so expensive, or I can go with the social way, die. We don't have a choice. So my next point is that I don't think people know how much $1 billion are. It has 1 followed by 9 zeros. That is literally 1,000 times more than a million. I don't think people understand that. And the global average income is approximately $18,000 per year. When I say that nobody actually deserves to be a billionaire, that is a lot of money. So my third point is parasocial relationship with the rich and famous. I would blame Keeping Up with the Kardashians and shows like that. People get so parasocially attached to this. I don't know, like there's so many examples around us. The finance bros just like kind of kissing ass for Elon and Jeff Bezos, etc., because they just want a job. So many parasocial relationships around us right now. It is greatly impacting how we feel about the rich and famous. I think we need to consciously think about that, base our decisions more mindfully. The next point is the system justification theory and the discomfort of acknowledgement. This is one of my favorite topics in this video, probably. It's because this is written by John Jost, who is a social psychologist. This guy basically dedicated their entire life to studying political systems, how they impact us psychologically, and how we deal with that, how we cope with that to stay sane, basically. The first and the most important theory that they came up with was Banerjee in 1994. That was a system justification theory that basically says that there's so many problems in the world, so I'm just gonna justify it in my head, like accept it the way it is. People are motivated to defend, bolster, and justify prevailing social, economic, and political arrangements. That is the status quo, to varying degrees depending upon situational and dispositional factors. It's like understand that things are wrong, but the need to justify them, and I think it plays a really important role in how we perceive the people in power. That brings me to Adorno, who wrote about authoritarianism. This is also a really interesting topic if you think about it. I'm going to give you a brief history of Adorno and where all that comes from. He came up with authoritarianism in the US, and they made this one testing how prone to authoritarianism and fascism people actually are, so that the entire Holocaust that happened in Germany does not repeat itself anywhere else. It had too many flaws. It was all obviously targeted towards only white men, and the people who were not white or not men or not rich came out to be more prone to authoritarianism. That's how like the authoritarianism personality of 1950 came into play. Fascist potential, ethnocentrism, the resistance to social change, how that comes upon. That actually led people to conduct more social experiments. Experiment conducted by Milgram in 1961 at Yale University. They kind of set this up by dividing the participants into two groups. Half of them were teachers, half of them were students, and the teachers were supposed to teach the students this one particular mathematics method of solving something, and if they answered the questions following that wrongly, they were to give them shocks. But the teachers and students were sitting in separate rooms. Teachers could only hear them. Shock voltage increases with every wrong answer. So students were actually not getting the shocks. It was just a hoax. They released sounds like screaming and like shouting sounds, and they just did not stop. They just thought that this is for the greater good. That entire experiment basically concluded that we conform to authority when we stop questioning it, when we conform to it thoughtlessly, when we stop consciously thinking about it and questioning it and criticizing it. That is when we conform to authority and fascism, and we get resistant to social change. So, coming back to how this is related to being anti-rich, this is when we stop thinking about rich people consciously and mindfully. Is when we actually stop considering how much power they actually hold, and we just let them make mistakes that are on a much greater scale, and the implications of those mistakes are even higher than what they do. It's not even that they're mistakes, they're inherently just actions which are wrong and which could have been done in better ways, but they just want to do it this particular way for profit. On Instagram reel I saw today, this video actually starts with this woman saying this:
and those who do not study how consumer ignorance is abused are likely to themselves become abused consumers.
This is exactly what I'm talking about. Like, if we do not acknowledge the presence of anything being wrong, power in the wrong hands, we are bound to become the abusers. We are closer to being homeless or being exploited than we are to becoming a billionaire anyway. So, okay, we are undermining the value of community and social change. I know I've mentioned this before, but there's also other factors that come into play when we talk about this. There's race, gender, and class bias. There's evolutionary anxiety of being ostracized and excluded. I've told people about boycotting Amazon in real life, and they're just like, why would you do that? And I just fail to understand that if you don't take a stance in real life with your own actions, there's lesser possibility for actual social change. And we need to understand that. The last thing is the death of journalism for clicks. They were actually talking about this in an episode of Interior Motives, if you know, you know. And they're talking about how, like, the core of journalism was that in every article, there's a reverse triangle going on, and the article starts with, like, okay, what the fuck is happening? And then they go into the details, and, like, the bottom bit is just that if you don't read it, it's fine. But now it's the opposite, because they just give you nothing in the beginning, and the entire thing is at the end, so that you go through and you spend time. The journalists can't even really give me what they are supposed to give me just right up. They have to form a story. They're storytellers more than journalists. So now we jump on to the doom, the horrors, and the doom math. And my first point is mother marketing feeds all. And I can't even question it, because I'm like, it breaks down Marx's 4 key dimensions of alienation if you actually think about it. One, it talked about how capitalism is separating humans from who they are and what they're working. It's separating humans from being creative to being mechanical. It's separating humans from competing with each other and not cooperating with each other. It's separating them from being a species being. And if you think about it, marketing brings them all together. Marketing is creative. Marketing is accounting for humans, because it is made to serve an audience. It is, even if it is clickbaited, it is being mindful of what the human mind wants. It is being a species being by, like, socially connecting people, and it's not really anything that's inherently something that humans will not fall for, because it is creative, it is social, and it is everything that we want at the end of the day. It is as big a pro as it is a con that we have reached the lengths of marketing, and we can achieve anything through marketing it the right way, that it's terrifying. It's everywhere. The second is the crashing job market and labor exploitation. We've already talked about this. The third, and what the fuck can we do about this? We can fight for labor rights. We can fight for tax fairness and social policies which will actually cause social change. And we can obviously boycott and support the local and ethical businesses who are trying to do the same thing that billionaires are trying to do unethically. There's another one video I saw that was talking about like the clothes that are cheap are not really cheap, they're at the cost of lives. I think it really says something. This also mentioned this one story from Nestle when they were testing their baby formula on mothers in Africa. They gave out free baby formula samples to a lot of mothers in Africa, made to mix with water and feed their children, and it was given to them right when they were like running out of breast milk. They were fed to tens of millions of infants. It was later found out that they mixed it with dirty water, and the packaging said that if you mix it with dirty water, the child would die, and tens of millions of infants ended up dying. Nestle took no accountability, by the way. Talking about how when anything is free, it's not really free. You are the product. So we need to think about that. To conclude, I have another Reddit thread. What can we actually do as ordinary people to help combust wealth inequality? As to God, organize and bring back unions. Unionization in the 50s and 60s directly contributed to the golden age in the economy and reduced economic stagnation for the lower middle classes. There was a real opportunity with collective bargaining that decreased the gap and allowed for even more success. Worker-owner co-ops, that needs to be the future of the economy so that wealth is shared across multiple owners. Stop overspending. Stop trying to keep up with the Joneses. Spend money in specialized small businesses. You get the point. There's obviously other factors like redistribution of wealth, actually fair ladder of opportunities, and through public policy we can ensure that the living costs are actually affordable. Trade-offs between incentives and income inequalities, they can be real will to change for the society and for the people. That is all I have for you today. I fear we have not solved all our problems. We have not solved our problems. We're not even close. The only way we're going to get any closer is through maintaining our rage against the rich. So stay angry, stay woke. I'll see you.